Well, I figured I would try and have a backdrop commensurate with the week's events. Something in the realm of the deep sea. Oh, by the way, I believe I hit the live button, so we should be.
Oh, we are live.
Up and running. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you know how we start the show. It's always informal. It's always something wrong. It's always something getting screwed up. My microphone and my camera's not working. It's always something. So, with that, and like right now, my camera's all fidgety. I don't understand that crap at all. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this week's edition of the Weekly Roundtable. I am one of your hosts, Frank Plea Bargain Johnson. I'm a Titanic tourist. To my side here is Michael Marshall, one of the co-founders of the Liberty First Foundation. And joining us, as always, is Michael Vasquez, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, New York's only true independent journalist. Gentlemen, how the hell are you?
Yeah,
pretty good for the most part.
Like quite a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, this... Don't mind me. I'm trying to fidget with my headphones so I could hear you guys better.
I'm also just letting people know. But the week's been a bit crazy. I mean, no shock about Biden, the cover-up with Hunter. We knew that was coming. They're going to sweep the whole thing under the rug to say, oh, we've settled it. It's all done. See, he got punished with probation, which doesn't cover what? They went on 3 of the 400 charges that were against him. And now they're going to stop the investigation on him and his father. Wow, isn't that great? New York is still going absolutely insane. I was just down, for people who don't know, I was down in the Bronx, part of a move that I'm making recent, near term. And I was back in the neighborhood that I grew up in. 50 years. I have had at least one member of my family in that neighborhood for 50 years, where I grew up. It is a ghetto. And that was the result of progressivism. And it's incredible. I can talk about it a little bit later, but it's insane to see the downward spiral, being able to give people free stuff and low-income housing and free drugs. And what's the result? They went to poverty. They went to a ghetto. It's insulting, but we can go into it. So that's the week we've been seeing. And news media wants to focus on everything except corruption, everything except the failure of the economy, everything except the way it's affecting our lives. That's what I noticed this week. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Marshall.
I see Canada has passed a new act called the Online News Act. And basically what it amounts to is it's going to require social media companies like Facebook, Twitter, etc., to license all news content.
Now, what does license the news content mean?
Well, hold on a second. I'll go ahead and
I imagine it's to police the content.
Yeah,
because anytime you have a license, that means you now have to seek someone's permission.
So news organizations and journalists are essential to our democracy. They play a vital role in providing accurate, fact-based, nonpartisan reporting on current events happening in our communities, across the country and around the world, allowing all of us to make informed decisions on important issues such as health, public safety, and education. Today's Bill C-18, the Online News Act, received royal assent. This new law will require the largest digital platforms to bargain fairly with Canadian news businesses for the use of their news content on their services. Millions of Canadians now access their news online. Digital platforms act as gatekeepers in today's digital news marketplace. Online News Act levels the playing field between news businesses and large digital formats to create greater fairness and ensure sustainability of the news industry.
Oh, so this is their version of the fairness doctrine.
Yes.
Pretty much.
All
Through
right.
a
So
market-based approach, it encourages voluntary commercial agreements between platforms and news businesses with minimal government intervention, as well as crucial safeguards to preserve the independence of the press. The following royal assent, the Department of the Canadian Heritage will publish draft regulations in the Canadian Gazette specifying the application of the Act and to provide guidance on implementing the exemption criteria. Everyone will have an opportunity to consult and provide feedback through this Canadian Gazette process. Canadian Radio, Television, Telecommunications Commission, CRTC, will be responsible for overseeing the Online News Act. It will oversee the bargaining, negotiation, and external final offer arbitration processes between platforms and news businesses. It will also create a code of conduct to support fairness and transparency in bargaining.
Now, let's stop for a second. We know how this works out. And because it's been done in the United States 3 times now, each time the same iteration, the same argument is being made. And they always promise the same thing, that this is going to make it fair. It's going to make it balanced. And every single time, it's the same thing. You're now going to have the government use taxes. There's going to be more taxes to subsidize the left and the leftward propaganda because it doesn't fare well against right and center leaning news media. And they're going to overinflate that in terms of its access. The public will react by not paying attention to it. It's a waste of money and it's counterproductive. And yet we're going to see that. And then we're going to hear in the United States, they're going to say, well, we should be more like Canada. Canada is doing the right thing because everything has to be fair and balanced. And the right is all over. They control everything, which is ridiculous by everyone's understanding. We're going to see that again.
This is already causing some backlash.
It should.
Okay.
Well, so backlash in Canada doesn't mean anything.
This is from Al Jazeera.
Well, Al Jazeera, I don't even use them as a news source. They're so horrible.
Okay, well, it's somebody that's not here, but Facebook will end news sharing as Canada passes payment bill. Okay.
Well,
Reuters is saying the same thing.
Well, what this strikes me as first is we have to pass the bill to see what's in it, because you read it in the sun. I mean, here it is. It's already there, but they've yet to publish the guidelines that everyone's going to have to abide by.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we passed this, but we're not telling you anything.
It's going to impact you.
We're not going to tell you how to implement it until we figure out the best way for us to do that. It's also a matter of saying, all right, the big media conglomerates that are in North America will be able to pay whatever little fees and fines and all the little mishmash crap that they're going to add into this stuff. But a lot of your smaller networks that are not cash flush are not going to be able to do that. So they'll make the licensing fees just high enough that, you know, it would bankrupt smaller media outlets. And then they'll say, well, if you can't afford to pay the fees, we'll subsidize it for you. However, your content
you've got to abide by our rules.
You will have to have. Now, this goes back to the conversation we had last week or 2 weeks ago when we were talking about being fair and balanced. I don't want my news to be fair and balanced. I want my news to be honest. Because if you have one side committing 99% of the atrocities and the other side only committing 1% of the atrocities, for you to be fair and balanced means you're not going to report on 98% of what the hell is going on. because you're going to go tit for tat. You're going to go one for one. This guy did something bad, so we'll show you what somebody else did something bad. They're going to obliterate everything else that's factual in the sense of being fair and equitable. That's what they're going to do. And the smaller news outlets that are going to say, hey, listen, here's a smaller story from this province or from this area or this one or that one. You know, it might only affect those little ones, but this is what we have. This is what we have to report. Oh, but we don't have anything from the other ones to balance it, so you're not going to be able to do that. And this is what it's going to be a matter of doing. It's a matter of controlling the news, controlling the message, and ultimately controlling the people. And as we've already seen what pushback in Canada does, as soon as somebody pushes back on something, and we saw it with the trucker convoy, people are going to go through a tremendous hardship in order to push back on a government because they do not have a means of really rebelling against their government. And then the government is just going to seize the assets of the people that speak out, just like they did with the trucker convoy. Every one of the GoFundMe projects, every one of the fundraising organizations that put together monies for these people, they seized it. If truckers showed up at the convoys and that trucker is driving a truck that he still owes money on, they were instructing the banks to foreclose on those rigs and have them repossessed.
Mm-hmm.
The people in Canada, they don't know how to push back because they're not born of it. They're not born of rebellion. They're born of subserviency. And this is exactly what's going to happen to them. They're going to get what they deserve.
Well, what I think is what we're seeing here is they're running this through Canada as a test for the U.S. It's very similar to the C-16 language bill, where you had to have mandated language, which has taken effect at many colleges here in the United States, where you can only using people's pronouns and you'll be punished and or fired or censored if you don't use pronouns properly. We saw that take place 3 years before it hit the United States. We're seeing this similar. Again, we've done this before, but now they're using a new online access to the same concept. They did it with Air America. They did it with the radio, and then they did it with cable. Now we're seeing it again, this time in an online format. And I think this is what they're doing. It's just like with the language mandates, they're doing this to get news mandates, propaganda mandates, quite honestly. And they're going to run that through Canada, see the opposition, see the arguments, both from the media they're supporting as well as the public, so that they can adapt it. And you'll hear Hakeem Jeffries within 2 years, right after the 2024 election, come out and say, hey, I've got either Hakeem, who's the head of the Progressive Caucus in Congress, or it'll be one of the other members, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Cori Bush, Anna Presley, and they'll come out with it and say, hey, we just need to make it fair. Because, conservatives, they'll use Alex Jones as their example. Alex Jones is just out there. He's insane. And so we have to protect people from all the problems that he has done, leaving out how often he's been accurate, leaving out the fact that we've had Newsweek and NBC, the New York Times, all of the major news media have come out repeatedly telling us that their reporters have either plagiarized or completely made up stories over the last 5 years. Every single major news media organization, especially on the left, have made these statements at least twice in the last 5 years, usually comprising dozens upon dozens of news stories, which have not been retracted. They just said, oops, it was just made up. Oops, it was miscredited. It was plagiarized. And they just move on. This is what we're going to see. This is a testing ground, I think. And it kind of scares me because you're not wrong, Frank. You're not wrong at all. They're going to try and squeeze out people, but in squeezing them out, this is how they test it, not only to squeeze them and make them more ostracized, but also to make sure that they're going to promote, as we already see, because, YouTube's already doing this. YouTube's already pushing. They have been for 3-4 years now. They emphasize the mainstream news media. On everyone's feed, they're putting in CBS, NBC, whether it's on the local or the national affiliates. They're pushing the late night shows and and John Oliver. They're pushing the left-wing news media onto everybody's feed, whether you want it or not, because they want to emphasize that and remove one of the greatest things that we see on social media from the regional commentators, news reporters, the social media reporters, is that they have very often a local access to their community, even as the newspapers are conglomerating and going away. They're going to regional news, not local news, not covering the local impact. And we've seen social media, YouTube, Google, have taken the same approach. They're going regional, not local. So people know less and less about what's happening in their neighborhood and more about what the state is saying that they should know with a leftward bias. This is all a test. This is a test to be able to censor people and again make it sound like, oh, well, they're the good guys, they're protecting us. No, they're not.
Oh yeah, because it's all fair. It's all based in fairness, and we want everything to be fair. It's such a crock. Plus, it's also a test of compliance. It's also a test of compliance. Let's see how the people react to it. And if they get the kind of reaction that the government approves of, they use that as the benchmark for when they try to push it here, as to say, well, look at how well the Canadians adapted to this. Look at how well the Europeans adapted to this. There's no reason why Americans need to be upset. There's no reason why Americans have to, protest or to do this. You want to burn a city down for some? Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But God forbid you want to protest or you want to speak out about how the government is screwing you. That you're not allowed to do. I pray for the friggin' media. I really am. I'm just praying for it at this point.
Don't, because they're so biased. They always forget, and they always say, well, we're doing this for you, except we've got a First Amendment that says I have a right to say whatever I want, whether it's correct or not. I have the right to say it. I have the right to share my opinion, especially about our government. That's what the First Amendment does. And they're saying, no, we have to protect you from things that the government doesn't want you to feel. They don't want you to hear about. They don't want you to be upset, even though you should be. And we've been seeing this this week, Wednesday. I was in New York City. I was in the Bronx, as I said. And I was doing a live stream throughout the Bronx, showing people the impoverished, virtually third world nature of what used to be a middle-class neighborhood, at least 25 years ago, 30 years ago. It was still a middle-class neighborhood, and now it's a ghetto. And I did that live. I then went to a business of a friend of mine, business internet connection, with several computers and systems that were up and online, live, that were running everything, running the business. And on that system, the 39-minute live stream that I had stopped in the middle of the live stream on that corporate connection and was buffering for an hour before they just decided to just stop it. They literally left the computer running, left it on, waiting for it to end buffering. It was a 40-minute live stream, 39 minutes to be exact, and it was buffering for an hour. This is the suppression, that's censorship, and that's what they're trying to do now. Discourage people from hearing the voices, discourage people from finding out the critique of what is going on, and they're going to use these kind of platforms like what we're seeing in Canada with the Online Act, where they're going to come in and say, we have to make sure you're feeling good about it. There's nothing good about learning that your neighborhood that was middle class is now a ghetto. It's a low income, impoverished neighborhood. that all of the items that were in the neighborhood that made people aspire to do better in life are all gone. And instead, what do they have? 2 to 3 weed shops on every single corner. They have 4 or 5 new massive low-income housing projects that have been put up. They have included into the area one motel, and they're building another one for illegal aliens who are then going out into the middle of the street and turning the street. This is Boston Road. This is US 1. And they're turning it into mobile mechanic shops. It's insulting to see the way that they have impoverished. There's at least, in the space of 5 blocks, there were at least half a dozen hair braiding salons and hair care. No, actually, just hair braiding. And then there's another half dozen hair care shops. There's nothing of substance in the entire neighborhood. Nothing that lasts. There used to be two supermarkets in that neighborhood. They're all gone. Now they just have bodegas. They used to have in that neighborhood 4 banks. Now they have 1. They have stripped away everything that is long-lasting, that is upward mobility, that would allow someone to develop and go forward. They used to have a furniture store there. That's gone. You used to have a butcher shop there. That's gone. A bakery was there. It's gone. These are all the things that encourage you to be part of your community, talk with people, to have the conversations, and to have the kids see that there is something to aspire to. That's all gone. Now everything is cheap. It is temporary. It is low quality. We have dozens of businesses and business spaces that are completely empty. And they're just building up more and more projects, and the taxes are going up and up because it's more, government's going to provide more housing, low-income housing. Why? Because you created a low-income future that people have nothing to aspire to and they can't afford anything else. You've dragged them down and you're keeping them down. And when someone wants to talk about it, oh, you can't say that. Silence. Shut up. Don't tell people that.
Isn't that all the district of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
No, she's next door. She would be off the 6 train. It's actually close to where I'm at, but just to the side. She's District 14, so it's kind of adjacent.
Well, I'd say
her people are pissed at her too because she's not in her district.
Well, I was just going to say, if it looks like you have a move down there in the future, maybe there's another congressional run we could spark you into.
I've had a couple of people ask about that. It's just upsetting. Matter of fact, there's a candidate, Pamela Hamilton Johnson. She's running for District 12 City Council of New York. And I saw her placard that she's running on. And her thing is, she's not trying to improve the neighborhood. She's not improving the quality of businesses. She's not trying to cut the amount of crime. She's not trying to reduce the amount of drugs that are in the neighborhood, which is all rampant. No. Her thing is, she would be the first Black female for District 12. And so that's her reason to run. She's a Democrat and she's a woman, and that is woman of color. So therefore, you should vote for her.
Well, you have to have a first. Not that you have to have the best. You just have to have a first.
Yeah, and that's her thing. She's the first, so you have to vote for her, not because she's trying to improve anyone's quality of life or the future for any of the kids.
No, because when you take the victimhood box, she can tick off a couple of check marks, and everybody can feel virtuous about taking someone who's in the victim classes and making them superior to themselves, in a job that they're vastly probably underqualified to hold.
It's incredible. And the thing that gets me, though, is, and going back to the online, what we're seeing with Canada's Online Act, what we have seen in the censorship and suppression on social media is you can't talk about it. I mean, I literally have a photo, and I sent out tweets to YouTube asking them, hey guys, it's a 39-minute replay of a live stream. Why is it impossible for people to watch it all the way straight through? No response, because it's about silencing people. You're not supposed to notice the problems.
I know this is going to be a random thought out there, but have you ever seen that Jim Carrey movie where he was the star of a TV show that he didn't know he was on, called the Truman Show?
Truman Show, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. There's a scene in the Truman Show where he starts to put the pieces together, and he realizes, I got to get off of this island. I got to try and find something's not right. I got to get out of here. And he tries to leave the island, and everywhere he goes to try and find a way to get off the island, he finds that something is blocking him. You know, he tries to run up this alleyway, and there's a dog that shows up growling and barking and snarling and keeping him where he is. He tries to go over this bridge, and all of a sudden it's a construction vehicle, puts road closed sign up. You know, he tries to do this. He tries to, everything that he tries to do, something shows up that is not meant to, it's ironic that all these things got in my way, but there's no possible way that it could be a conspiracy against me to have all of these things block my path. You know, and when we sit and we look at how many times that we go live, we do live stream, we have a show or something like that, and we all seem to have technical difficulties at an exact moment in time when we start talking about something sensitive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then what is the only thing that we could possibly do except chalk it up to another technical glitch? Oh, the internet is slow today. The internet is having a moment. This is happening. That's happening.
It's because everybody's algorithm. We're tripping the algorithm on the keywords.
Right. And that's what happened in the Truman Show. It's like he finally gets so frustrated that he can't leave, that the only thing that he can do, that he can leave, is swim. But they've instilled in him a fear from when he was a child of the water. The only thing that they really can't control in that movie is the water, because once he gets into the water, they can control the weather, but they can't control him physically. Mm-hmm. They can't stop him. So what did they do? They instilled in him a fear, an irrational fear of the water from when he was a child. Because when he was a child, he killed his father off in his life in a boating accident. What do you think they've done to Americans? And they have tempered Americans to have this fear that they've tried to instill in us about fighting back. You know, they've built this fear into us about being being rebellious, being independent, telling the truth. You must conform. You have to comply. You have to agree. You have to do this. You have to do that. And I sit and I think to myself, I don't ever remember signing a contract with anybody that I have to follow somebody else's rules. I've never signed that contract. I never signed a contract that said I had to pay taxes. I never signed a contract that said I have to follow the laws that they put in front of me. I never signed a contract that said I can't talk about this or I can't talk about that. As far as I'm concerned, freedom is a complete illusion to what we know of it, because we are still being bound by contracts we never signed. And we are so caught up in the idea that if we fight back, we're going to get penalized for it. We're going to be, prosecuted. We're going to be told what we can and what we can't do, what we can and we can't say. Why is it that the police can lie to us, but we can't lie to the police? Congress can lie to us, but if we go and testify in front of Congress, we can't lie to them. How is it that our own citizenry, people that we have elected to represent our views, if we were to go and to testify in front of them, if we don't abide by their rules and their regulations, they can criminally penalize us by putting us in contempt of our own employees. These are our employees, but they can hold us in contempt. Why don't we as the people have any outlet to hold them in contempt other than an election that they can control the outcome to? This is the thing that I don't think people really understand. The fight that we are against is how much control that everybody can exert over us, whether in the obvious domain or the oblivious domain. People don't even realize how controlled their lives are because we are so afraid to confront the people holding the strings. And it's shit like what's happening in Canada. Why do you think that Trudeau decided he was going to triple down on gun enforcement in Canada? That not only is he going to outlaw the sale of handguns, outlaw the ownership of them, outlaw rifles. The only thing the Canadians can have is a shotgun now.
Yeah, because
why do you think they're doing that, and they continue to do this now? And now ATF right now is salivating over, I think this will be the 14th or 15th time they've tried to pass this bill, that if you buy more than one firearm within a course of a week, your FFL has to notify ATF that you purchased more than one gun within the span of a week, and they'll schedule you for an investigation to come and see what it is that you bought. Now, ATF doesn't have a mechanism, or at least they're not supposed to, of keeping track of how many guns you own or what guns you're supposed to, because that's called a firearm registry, and that's illegal in this country. But yet the ATF is now going around seizing records of FFLs, and now Congress, they're trying to pass this other legislation where if you buy more than 2 guns, you're going to get a visit by the ATF. Now,
it's like the red flag laws.
Right. We are being controlled in so many ways. We can't even possibly grasp how controlled we are being. And it's beyond frightening. Beyond frightening. I cannot imagine for the life of me that this is anywhere close to what the vision of the founding fathers had when they decided to institute this great experiment.
Well, I'll give you an example of what they explicitly did not want to show. You can share this I just brought up. Earlier this week, we had Mark Molinaro. As everyone may recall, Adam Schiff went on to national TV for 3 years, repeatedly telling the American people he had evidence, a key word here, evidence, that proved there was Russia collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia affecting our elections. That's what Adam Schiff said for 3 years in a row. We had 3 investigations, spent 35 million taxpayer dollars. None of that was true. Then came the Durham report with another $10 million. Again, verifying not true at all. Therefore, we see that it was Adam Schiff, Representative Adam Schiff out of California, lied to the American people. Therefore, he deserved censure. Mark Molinaro was one of 20 Republicans who voted along with all Democrats to protect Adam Schiff from being punished for lying to the American people. Censure is what this was created for. That's why in the Constitution there is censure for when people betray the trust of the people they are supposed to serve. Mark Molinaro voted against the constituents, and he voted in favor of lying to the American people. Now, I know Mark Molinaro. I've met him several times. He's supposed to be interviewed by me. I want to be very clear. I'm a Republican. I've talked with him. And when he came out on June 15th and said, hey, you know what? There was a constitutional concern, so I voted against it. I asked him multiple times on multiple formats, as you can see here in the tweet, where I asked him, you haven't given us an answer saying what's the constitutional concern about the censure? Because that is constitutional. What was the problem that stopped you to voting for this? His only answer is the next time the vote comes up, I'll vote in favor. Why? Because he had a backlash because his constituents said, oh no, this is a problem. And he never answered the public. He never replied.
According to Schiff, the whole reason why he was censured on the second vote, not on the first vote, is because of Trump's statement that was put out on, let's see, what's the date on this? I actually don't see a date on it. But Trump on Truth Social, and I'll go ahead and share it so that everybody can see it.
No, while you're bringing that up, it's amazing that the only thing that made Mark Molinaro change his vote is the fact that everyone, he had tens of thousands of people saying, give us a reason why. Explain yourself to the people you're supposed to serve.
Well, that's the same bullshit that I got from Thomas Massey.
Yeah.
Where Thomas Massey came out and said, well, I was concerned for the constitutionality of the vote, and $16 million in fine would be the equivalent of 88 years of pay. I don't care. I don't care that it was 88 years of pay. I don't care about the 88 years of pay. What, Thomas, you said it's unconstitutional. How? How was it unconstitutional? Give me that answer. You're the constitutional expert in the House and everything. Why was it unconstitutional? Give me the reason. Don't just tell me, oh, well, you're a conservative. You should appreciate the fact that I said it's unconstitutional and leave it be. No, tell me where. Tell me where. Tell me where exactly is it?
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Okay, if you're going to claim something's unconstitutional, show me how.
Exactly, and he didn't. And Molinaro just decided that he was going to follow Thomas Massey's lead because of the 20 Republicans that voted against censure the first time around. Massey was probably known as the Constitution guy.
Yeah,
out of them. Okay, it would be the same way if it was Ted Cruz on the Senate side. It would be okay. That's the Constitution guy, or Rand Paul. That's the Constitution guy. That's all right. Whereas you have some of the other guys would be a principled guy. These are the constitutional guys that say, even though I don't agree with it in my heart, I have to look at the constitutionality of it. Those are your Constitution guys. Molinaro didn't want to give an answer because he was looking for Massey to give him cover. And then when Massey didn't give him any cover, he was forced to change his vote in the second time around after they changed the language a little bit. And the only reason they changed the language was to protect this piece of garbage.
Yeah,
to protect him.
Well, on Truth Social, according to Adam Schiff, the whole reason why is because Trump threatened any Republicans voting against censure that they would be primaried. Okay. And on Truth Social, he did. Okay. Anna Paulina Luna is a star. She never gives up, especially in holding total lowlifes like Adam Shifty Schiff responsible for their lies, deceit, deception, and actually putting our country at great risk, for which he should be imprisoned. He is a leaker and a scoundrel. Any Republican voting against his censure, or worse, should immediately be primary. There are plenty of great candidates out there. Okay, and that was Trump's statement on social media, or on Truth Social, shortly after the censure vote, the first censure vote.
Well,
And then Schiff will come out and go, see, he's interfering with congressional.
Well, that's exactly what he says. Okay.
Yeah, but
this up.
But he's ignoring the fact, like in the tweet I just showed, there were 50,000 of the constituents in the New York 19th district that were asking Mark Molinaro. A similar number were going after Thomas Massey. The public said something. It doesn't matter if Trump, they want to focus on Trump to distract from the fact that the constituents said this is a problem. So this is Schiff trying to, again, shift.
This friggin' guy. Tell me this guy doesn't look like a Q-tip. A used, soiled Q-tip.
So tonight, the Republicans in the House voted to censure me.
So these are his
Let me
words.
see if I can break down what this was all about. A representative from Florida, who's one of the extreme MAGA Republicans named Luna, ironically, introduced a resolution last week to censure me. It failed. One out of every 10 Republicans voted against this abuse.
Yeah, so, what does that mean? What does
Luna got to do anything?
What is her name? What is her name?
Yeah.
Luna is Spanish for moon.
Yes.
Okay,
so he's calling her a lunatic. That's what he's trying to do.
What he's doing.
This is racial. He's made it now. It's about her ethnicity. That because she's Spanish and her name is Luna, that means
there must be something wrong with it. Well, she's a conservative Republican Hispanic. Clearly, there's something wrong with her. She's a female conservative Hispanic.
Which is why he goes, she's an extreme MAGA. What does MAGA mean? MAGA means make America great. She's an extreme American. She wants to make America great. That's extremist. You have to be upset about that. That's why he uses MAGA, not saying make America great, because that's not extreme. He's trying to picture her as somehow damaged or somehow not
tainted.
Yeah.
An extremist right radical activist.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Continue playing this shit faces statement.
Okay. Is the audio coming through?
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Use of the House process. She brought it back this week. And the main difference was that Donald Trump put out a statement saying that any Republican that voted against this censure would be or should be subject to a primary challenge. And as his threats have often done in the past, it worked. All those that voted against it last week voted for it this week, and it passed on a party line basis. Now, I need to tell you, this is very rare to have a censure resolution. And
again, what does he? Donald Trump said this. Yeah. What about the hundreds of thousands of Republicans and constituents that said before Donald Trump said a word, immediately said, that Adam Schiff should be censured, that there was an underlying problem, that he committed a crime. Folks, when you're watching this, listen to what they're saying. He wants to make it sound like, well, Donald Trump said that. No.
Yeah, there's only Donald
said
Trump.
This.
Yeah. Well, as far as anybody can be concerned right now, Donald Trump is a private citizen.
Yeah.
He has his opinion, his vote, his voice is only as weighty as mine is or yours is, because he's just a private citizen. Yes, he has security clearances and Secret Service protection, but he's still a citizen, and he has the right to say, I think this guy should be censured, and any Republican that votes against it should be primaried. I believe the same thing.
Right.
Notice he doesn't talk about the underlying cause. Why are you being censored? Notice he never addresses I lied to the American people.
Yeah, I lied for 3 years. He keeps going, no, I proved there's Russian collusion because somebody in Russia paid $160,000 to Facebook in ads to run again. Well, I'm sure that running an ad is not collusion.
No.
And that they tried to influence our election. Mexico tries to interfere with our elections every goddamn time.
Does China, Canada,
China,
Germany.
Every
country tries to.
Yeah,
Every country spends thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to influence our elections one way or another, depending upon which candidate they think is going to present the most favorable terms for their series of international relations with the United States.
Well, let's think about this. We're talking about a $1 billion election. They spent $100,000, call it $200,000 on a $1 billion election, not including all the other countries that were spending money on their candidates of choice as well. This is, again, he's trying to distract. He's trying to make it look like, oh, there's no problem here. Nothing was illegal or wrong, except, again, there have been 3 independent studies on this, research on this, reports on this, including one from the Democrats. And there's the Durham report that just came out that all say exactly the same thing, debunking everything he is saying here. He is trying to count on the fact that the public is either ignorant or that they forget what happened, what the actual facts are.
All right. Now, to put it into perspective for people, do you know what 180,000? Because let's just call it 180. I'm not sure if it's 160 or 200, but so let's go middle of the road, 180. $180,000. That's how much they spent in Facebook ads.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what Facebook tells you as far as their ad system? Do you know how much exposure $180,000 in advertising buys you?
Yes, I do. Actually, I do.
All right, 16,636 positive engagements.
It's about
That's
17.
It roughly translates into $11 per person.
Yeah.
That they talk about. That's what your revenue is buying you as far as positivity toward your campaign. You're spending $11 per person. That's why we don't run ads on Facebook, because it's not really a good financial investment to make.
No, it's not.
So Facebook charged $180,000 that some oligarch in Russia paid to run an ad that nobody has ever shown us what the ad was.
Yeah.
We still don't know what the alleged ad was that they showed. So they influenced 16,000 people. They more than compensated for that by screwing with one voting machine in this country. How come they don't want to talk about the election interferences that they caused with the Dominion machines? Or am I allowed to say that?
We're allowed to mention that there was a problem. We're not allowed to say how. According to YouTube, the restriction is you can say there was a problem, but you can't say any of the causes. So what might have
I can't state it as a matter of fact. However, yes. I can state it as an opinion. No, I can state things as an opinion. Because I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express one night, so I'm an election aficionado. That I believe that certain election machines were tampered with in very specifically located areas, so that they would garner more votes for one candidate than the other, giving us a number of 81 million, which is not only statistically impossible but logistically impossible. That much I can tell you is a fact, that 81 million votes was impossible, because when you add the 81 and 76 gives you 13% more than the number of actual registered voters in the country, even if you include the dead ones.
Well,
that's not election interference.
Well, there are irregularities in the election process.
Irregularities.
Well,
don't mind the fact that Newsweek came out, what was it, 2 months after the election, and mentioned how there was a shadow cabal working to enforce the election. They were fortifying, that's the word they used, from Newsweek. They fortified the election with a shadow cabal. Yeah, but that's okay. Forget about the Durham report talking about the FBI influencing the election as well. See, and Adam Schiff doesn't want to talk about any of these things because it actually puts daylight on what actually happened and how it violates the Constitution. It nullifies voters. He doesn't want to talk about that. No, this is all political. Forget about the facts. Here's an emotion for you to grab onto, you low information peon. He is treating the American people as if they are serfs, that they are slaves, and they are ignorant, and they do not realize what's going on. He so deserves to be not just censured, but removed from office. And I know he's running for Dianne Feinstein's Senate seat. And I pray that the people of California, San Francisco, that they take a moment while trying to avoid all the feces on the ground and the people overdosing, and get to the booths and do not vote him in. I'm not saying who to vote for.
Oh no, they're gonna
not him.
No, they're gonna vote for him. He already had. Look, he's already been ordained. Because just like in stuff, go ahead and use your anger and strike me down. I will arise more powerful than you could ever imagine. That's Adam Schiff. They can knock him down. He's going to come back, covered in Teflon in a higher ranking position with more money, more power, and now have all of Feinstein's legions behind him as well. This guy is not going anyplace.
No,
he's not going anyplace. They could censure him all they want. He's not going anywhere.
Unless they actually take action. Okay. And there are more investigations going on. Don't get me wrong. Okay. Censure does nothing. Okay. It's nothing more than a public rebuke.
Yeah.
By the house that they're in. Okay. Whether it's the Senate or the House of Representatives. That's all it is. Okay. Any fines that he got and so forth, that's separate from censure. And notice he doesn't talk about that in this. Okay. The only thing he talks about is how the vote changed from not censoring him to censuring him because Donald Trump made a tweet, or what essentially is a tweet on Truth Social. I'm sorry. I honestly believe that there's a hell of a lot more than Trump. Okay. And honestly, if they're that scared of being primaried, okay, maybe they should start looking at how they're operating. Okay. I mean, if you're that scared that if you're primary that you won't be reelected, then maybe you need to start looking at, hey, maybe I need to start representing the people that I'm supposed to represent better.
Well, and the thing is, if this piece of crap is so concerned about what happened on Truth Social has 512,000 daily users.
Yeah. It's not.
There are only 2 million accounts on Truth Social in totality. Only 512,000 are actual active daily users. And not every one of the ones that are on 512,000 of their daily users are there to follow Trump.
No.
A lot of them are there just because they don't like the censorship platform that's on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And of the 2 million
or the other social
of the 2 million accounts that are there, that 512,000 are active daily users, I guarantee you probably at least 10% of them are people that friggin' hate Trump, that just go there to monitor what he says so they could use it on Twitter. So what did Trump influence? Maybe 400,000 people on Truth Social got to see his message. And of those 400,000 people, how many of them live in the areas of the Republicans that actually voted for censure? So this guy's numbers don't add up.
No, they don't.
400,000 people, of the 400,000 people that saw the message, how many of them picked up a phone, wrote an email, or visited their local congressional district office to say, you better get in there and censure this guy, and do it all within 4 days from the time the first vote was cast to the time the next vote was cast?
Yeah. No.
Maybe 1,000 people?
if that.
Maybe let's
for
even
all
give it
20.
generous. Let's generous and give him 5,000. Maybe 5,000 people picked up a phone.
Yeah, and that would be for all 20. Okay, so
Yeah.
you divide that by 20, and the numbers are minuscule.
Yeah, it's 400 people per. And I doubt there's 400 people in Thomas Massey's neck of the woods that actually went and picked up the phone and called him.
No.
They still probably got dust on the phone over in his office.
Yeah, they know. He knows that he's lying to the American people again, and that he is trying to misdirect people and try
He's
to
deceiving them.
what's it this?
Okay.
Straight up again.
The very
And there-
thing that he just got censored for, he's doing again.
And they're happy about it.
Oh, they love it.
They
They're
love
eating it up.
they love it. They love it. They're treating this guy like the homecoming queen. They love this crap. They love it. Anything that you could say against Trump that gets somebody else riled up against about you, he found his winning formula. 5 years ago, did anybody ever hear of this friggin' guy?
No.
He's
No.
been around for a little
And
while.
here's the thing. Okay. During the formal censure process, the person that's being censured is supposed to go to the well of the House or the Senate and be presented with what they're being censured for and to offer rebuttal for that censure. At the time of his censure, every Democrat in the House of Representatives went down to the well. Okay. So this tells me one thing, plain and simple, plain as day. The Democrats aren't out for anything other than to deceive and manipulate you. And they will do it in any means possible, including lying and fabricating evidence. Okay. If that's what we've got as a political party, then we've got much, much more severe things that we need to start worrying about in this country. And I'm not even going to limit that to the Democrats. It's not happening just on the Democrat side. So maybe we need to start looking at ourselves as a nation that is supposed to be governed by the people and start realizing that the representatives that we're putting in office are doing nothing more than lying and manipulating us. And maybe we need to start taking a stand and start getting people that actually represent us instead of working to manipulate us into their desired results.
Yeah, I literally would say anyone that voted to protect Adam Schiff, even as he has been proven repeatedly at the cost of tens of millions of tax dollars to have lied to the American people, willfully lied and misled the American people, and did so in a way. Think about this, because Massey wants to say, oh, it would have cost 88 years. Let's assume that everything that Adam Schiff said, let's say it cost $1. If it had an impact on America of $1 per American citizen and that's over 3 years. So over 3 years of him lying to America, and this is weakening the relationship of the President of the United States and dealing with the rest of the world. It's having a negative impact on the bonds and everything that we do. Let's assume that had an impact of $1, just $1 per American citizen. That's $350 million. Why can't we censure him for that? Why is that a problem? What is the big deal here? Of course, he should be punished. This had an economic as well as political impact on the United States. It had an impact on the international stability of the world because he was attacking the credibility of the United States. It wasn't just Donald Trump. He's attacking the credibility of our elections and our entire system. And that means that people have less faith and trust in the United States, especially our allies. And that is a negative. He endangered our safety by doing what he did. I want people to understand the full impact of what Adam Schiff lying for years did. It affected our economy, it affected your taxes, it affected inflation, it affected international safety of Americans abroad, businesses overseas, how our allies were reacting.
International relations.
Yeah. So I mean, this is the impact of what that lie is. They don't want to talk about that, but that's the reality of it. That's the impact of it. And we're saying that, oh, well, that's okay. This is ridiculous. And Republicans are running around going, and I want to hear, what was the backroom deal? Let's assume Thomas Massie had a legitimate Eighth Amendment claim. He at least told people to some degree why he made the vote the way he did. We have people like Mark Molinaro and many of the other Republicans that voted for Adam Schiff that didn't. They didn't even have the balls to stand up and say, well, it was because of the Eighth Amendment. Whether you agree or not, at least that's an answer. No, they danced around it. And then, you know, what really made it even worse, Mark Molinaro, and a lot of them did this. When he finally came out at the same time that he made the second vote, he went to Syracuse and made an announcement talking about the vote and why he changed his vote in Syracuse. For people who don't know, the southern tier of New York is not in Syracuse. The New York 19th district isn't in Syracuse. He went to Syracuse, the Democrats in Syracuse, and he was talking to them about his vote about Adam Schiff. He wasn't even talking to his own voters. He didn't go to Bob Joseph, as an example, WNBF, the local talk radio news station. He didn't go to WICZ or WBNG. He didn't go to any of the local news stations. He went out of the market, out of the district, to the New York 25th district to tell them about a vote. Their people didn't vote on it. They're not involved with him. So again, he showed a disservice and a disinterest in his own community.
Well,
because he wouldn't even tell them he went somewhere else instead.
Well, that's probably him trying to lay the groundwork for a senatorial run.
Maybe.
Yeah. And just remember, everybody, when we're talking about the Democrats, this is what we're up against.
What?
This.
You don't think she's brave and beautiful?
No, this is... I can't think of any better... If I wanted to put a visual representation against the insanity that we come across on the left, then this thing, this picture of this one here.
Any picture of AOC or Illinois?
No, because AOC, if you changed, I can't even believe I just said her initials. I fucking hate that. Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. Even if you put a different title under her, she could pass for sane. This one wears the politics on the outside. This is the representation of the left. This one. She is as loony on the inside as she is on the outside. This is what we're up against. This is what Republicans in the House and the Senate bow to. This is what they're afraid of. This. They celebrate this as normal over there on that side. That's what they think is the norm. When the hell are Republicans going to say, listen, can the greatest country on earth ever possibly, I don't know, be normal for a little while? Can we shed the ridiculousness and maybe have a moment of decorum, civility, and sanity, and actually talk about what's good for the country? or do we, or are we just on the road of playing the visual? Is everything a matter of what people see and no longer a matter of what people believe or what people know to be true in their heart and their soul? And what the hell are Republicans so afraid of?
Well, I want to know, okay, forget about Republicans, forget about Democrats. When are we as Americans going to start standing up and demanding that our representatives act properly to actually start representing us? Okay, we're the ones in control. But you look at our politics, you would never know it.
Well, the whole thing is, are we even in control anymore, Michael? That's the problem. I have zero faith and confidence. I would be frightened. I don't have any kids. All right, at least none in the school age. All right, so the school district votes, school board votes, and all the rest of that. I don't have a dog in the hunt other than the message. All right, I would like to be
my point, Frank.
Yeah, but I'm saying I don't even think my vote would matter
in this situation. The whole reason why school boards are able to do this is because the American people are asleep at the wheel. They're not involved. They don't do what's needed.
Right. And what I'm saying is when we do get involved and we do voice our opinion, the feds come after us, label us as domestic terrorists, and then they wind up investigating us for it. I don't give a shit. I got a sign on the door that says come back with a warrant.
Yeah, but they've scared the average American. See, we're not normal in the sense that we actually pay attention to the details. We actually are asking for accountability from these elected officials, regardless of their party affiliation. But as we are speaking right now, there are Republicans in the southern tier of New York that are saying, my God, Mike is talking badly about Mark Molinaro. How can he do that? Because Mark Molinaro might lose the 2024 election. And my answer is he lost his credibility. He has abandoned the people. I don't care if he loses. He is not credible as a candidate, as a representative by his own actions. Why should I vote for him just because he has an R after his name? If he's not accountable, how is that different than any other progressive? Why should I trust him? It's the same argument I had about Richard Hanna.
I got into a discussion this week.
What?
Okay, I got into a couple discussions this week. One of them is we all need to go. All of us Republicans need to go to the primaries. We need to vote. We need to vote. Yeah. We go, yay. We get to vote for a selected group of people that were handpicked by the GOP and forced down our throat.
Well,
okay, we don't have any choice. The only choice we have when we go is to the ballot box is whether or not we're going to vote red or if we're going to vote blue.
No, see, and here's the thing, because people, when they say that, they forgot the initial step. As Republicans, we get to choose who's going to be in that primary. We need to go out and say, it's not just Mark Molinaro. Pick someone better, not what the GOP, as an example, in Broome County, the GOP have already folded. They have, because of the alignment of the top elites, they're already Molinaro all the way. They don't care what he says because he's a personal friend of certain individuals within the party. We need to have another choice. The public, the Republicans or the Democrats or whomever need to go out and get a candidate, petition, sign the petitions and get this petition signed for a different choice that isn't being handed down by the chairman of the Broome GOP.
Oh, but Mike, you don't understand. I don't do politics.
What?
I don't do politics. You don't understand.
Politics does
I don't
us.
do politics.
But we have to. Because politics is doing us every day, dirty and without our permission.
But that's the thing. Or I don't have time.
Like hell you don't. People
There's
watch.
a billion and one excuses, guaranteed. Okay,
Yeah.
and the only reason why we are in the situation we are finding ourselves in today, and I've spouted this over and over and over and over again, is because good people refuse to be involved in their own governance.
Yeah, and I get that because I've been doing it 17 years. I've been fighting the fight, and I understand how it feels, losing thousands of dollars a year doing what we do here. Same thing on this program too. We're losing money. We do this because we believe it is important. And God help us if even 5% of the people in the congressional districts that are watching this across the nation, if they just stood up and spoke up, we would see an absolute change out there. The average person who's voting in an election, as an example, in Broome County, is about 30% in a good year. It's ridiculous. We need to assert ourselves and stop just bowing down, because that's how we get these friends and friends with benefits essentially in our politics, which is what we're seeing in the New York 19th district right now. Friends with benefits are all connected, whether it's Josh Riley on the Democrat side or whether it's Mark Molinaro on the Republican side. They're both doing the same thing. It's their friends with benefits in politics and their supporters, the businesses they're getting money from, that are making decisions and telling everyone else you don't have a choice. I'm sorry, the choice isn't just Josh Riley as a Democrat and just Mark Molinaro as a Republican. There is a huge pool of really good people out there. We just need to take action and not be afraid, as I know the Republican Party is saying right now, oh, Mike, you're a bad guy. You can't say that. They've told me that since when I went against Richard Hanna in 2012. Mike, you can't say that. He's a Republican, but he was a bad Republican. He was a bad member of Congress. God bless his soul. He's passed on now, but that doesn't change his history. He was a bad Republican. I called him out for that. And then, lo and behold, in his third race, it came out. He's a bad Republican and a bad member of Congress. And what they say? Oh, Mike, well, I didn't know he was that bad. Yes, you did, because I told you. And I'm not afraid to stand up and be the only one. They're counting on it's the same thing that Facebook and YouTube are doing. Same thing that we see in Canada with the Online News Act. They are trying to say, if you don't follow, if you do not obey, you're going to be ostracized. And the answer we should give back is try it. Go for it. I don't care, because you don't control my life, my friends, or what I can do. Oh, we're going to ban you on YouTube. Well, that's why there's a Rumble, a BitChute, an Odyssey, a Getter, a Truth Social. There are other alternatives out there. Go ahead and ban me. I don't care.
Okay.
And more importantly, my friends are in real life, not online.
So this is Ballotpedia, and this is for the last election. New York State, we had a Senate seat that was up. Okay. The Republican primary for that Senate seat was canceled.
Yeah.
Okay. There were 5 people that wanted to primary Joe Pinion.
Yeah.
Okay. And they did not make the ballot.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. Okay.
Well, I know the main reason. The GOP wasn't supporting anybody,
Right.
And they were denying money and or support. Even when they told everyone that even if you got on the ballot, you would get no further support. Even if you won the primary, you would get no support from the state GOP. They said that in so many words. So people just bowed out and said, why bother?
And that's there you go. Okay. We don't have any real choice. We have a choice between red or blue.
Again, that's only if you're willing to obey, if you're willing to back down and just go with, well, this is what the party says. That's why I'm active in my party. That's why I recommend people to be representative members of the party and to speak up and say, no. I've taken on many chairmen of many counties and said, no, you're wrong. This is wrong. I've been public about it. And I tell people, what's the worst thing they can do to you? Literally, what's the worst thing they can do? They don't like you. Okay, not everyone likes you. They can't stop you from speaking. They can't stop you from who you're going to donate to, who you're going to support, who you volunteer for. And you might as well, if you're going to do that, do it for the best choice. Whomever you think is the best choice, do that. Not because some party official said, oh, go and pick that guy. We already picked him for you.
Okay,
Those are
and
our
that's
choices.
exactly what happens. Okay, I admit we are against the grain. But we see this all the time. I can go to pretty much any state in the nation. Okay. And I guarantee that if they're an incumbent, they will have zero opposition. If they're trying to take a seat and they're in the opposite party, the favorite of the party will win the primary. Normally because everybody else steps down because that party said, you'll get your turn. And if you continue, you won't.
Yeah, they've said that to me. I've been told something tantamount to that in my political endeavors.
Okay. And honestly, the parties, as far as I'm concerned, the parties are worthless. Both of them. Okay. They don't represent us. They represent their pet agendas, whatever that agenda is. And generally, it's agendas that are purposely selected to create the most division between the two parties.
I would add one caveat to that: the establishment choices of that. There are outliers. There are people who are trying to do the very best they can. And those aren't establishment choices. And when I say establishment, I mean people like Mark Molinaro, who is an establishment choice. Josh Riley, establishment. Anthony Brindisi, establishment. When we look at Chuck Schumer, we look at Kirsten Gillibrand. I mean, there's a reason why you don't hear her voice anymore. Why? She's a yes woman. She's there to just back up whatever the party says. Remember when she admitted on ABC News in 2015 that it was a known fact amongst Democrats, including the Obama administration, including Barack Obama, that they were going to take away your doctors, that they knew it was a lie to say that Obamacare would let you keep your doctor. The Democrats knew that. She said it on ABC News. But she's protected. Why? Because she's a yes woman for the party. And you don't hear about her until it's time for either a re-election or they need her vote. And otherwise, you don't know. No one's talked about her. She's disappeared. She's not in the news. She's a member of the Senate. You don't see her. You don't hear from her. She's not even on C-SPAN. It's sad.
Now, here's the thing. Okay, the Buffalo election was a huge fluke.
Kind of like the election in New Jersey. The write-in who won in New Jersey in 2022.
Okay. The Buffalo mayor that was reelected due to write-in votes because he was already a mayor once and he lost in the primary. Okay, so he's still able to get enough support to be able to do that because he's already well known. Okay. The parties do so much to keep you from being well known. And then if you do start to get recognition, they will destroy you in any way, shape, or form they can. Okay. Trump was a fluke. Trump being elected was a fluke. And it literally caught the Democrats were sure that they are going to have another Democrat in office after Obama. They were assured Hillary Clinton was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The Republicans were shocked when Trump was able to actually get selected to be the candidate. Everybody was caught off guard by Trump. Everybody. Regardless of whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. And because he was an establishment and so forth, look at what happened during his presidency. Look what's happening now.
Yeah, they're attacking him and they're supporting people like Adam Schiff and they're downplaying the connection between Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and the deals that they have made internationally.
Okay.
The peddling of influence.
The only way that we can do this is to literally start taking our country back. But we can't do it unless the people start to get involved. And they don't.
Yeah, but they have to. I mean, look at what being silent has gotten us.
Regardless of whether they have to or not. Mike, you've been doing this 17 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Have they gotten involved in that 17 years? Has anything changed?
And a couple
Or has it gotten worse?
There have been a couple of, I can say regionally, there's been a couple of races where yes, but has the momentum gotten across the state or even or across the nation? No. And again, it's isolated to a couple of specific races that I've seen.
Again, and I said this the last time, the reason why we don't have the control that we do is because when we do get that spark, when we do have something that starts to bring our side together and attract the fence sitters that are otherwise disengaged, we still make the same mistake we always make collectively, and that is to rely on the same people that have been there who co-opt the message that is, grassroots sponsored. And then they take that message, they run with it, and then they just do business as usual. And to give you an example, the Tea Party, okay, going back as far as Contract with America. Contract with America was brilliant. That was something that Newt Gingrich had put together. They put together a 10-point plan, and they said, if you give us control of the House and Senate, we will do the following, and this is our contract. To their credit, they did fulfill the contract with America, except everything that they put in the contract was, for lack of a better word, had expiration dates on them. A lot of the things that they did would sunset, so that while we would see an immediate change in something as far as, okay, we had that instant gratification, the long-term effect never really took hold because the expiration date was kind of built in there so that they could protect the status quo for longer than that election cycle. The status quo would look like it was in jeopardy, but we would just be complacent enough to forget about what the contract was. Then that went, and that was 1995, 96 was Contract with America.
96.
That they took that, okay? Then we look back at the 9/12 rally, that Glenn Beck started that whole thing. And that was all born on the heels of Obamacare.
Yeah.
America was finally fed up with the government intruding into things that we weren't supposed to be intruded with. I was in Washington, D.C. on September 12th of that day with what is estimated to be anywhere between 1.2 and 2.2 million people, because that's when the Capitol Hill Police Department at that point said, oh, we no longer collect the data to determine the size of crowds. But when we did the analysis of the photographs that were done from the air, and we could see what the mall looked like using reasonable expectations, because they couldn't encompass everything at one time, because they weren't using drones. They were just using helicopter photography at the time. Anywhere between 1.2 and 2.2 million people. That lasted long enough until John Roberts stabbed everybody in the country in the back. And they ruled that Obamacare was fine. But all of the politicians that embraced the Tea Party movement, that embraced the 9/12 rally people, that embraced the Trumpers, they all did exactly the same thing. They co-opted the message long enough to placate the people so that they would have our very limited memory tested and that we would all forget. And then it was just, well, you can't fight City Hall. They do this all the time, and we may change a couple of the faces. We may change a couple of the people. But the fact of the matter is the system is corrupt. And unless and until the entire system is dismantled, and all of these people, regardless of how good or bad they are, have to come back to the American people and re-justify their existence, not by what they're promising, but who they are as people and where they stand as far as the Constitution. And we have a means of pulling them the hell out at will with recall voting, being able to recall these people at a moment's notice. No, you're fired. Where we're not relying on them to rewrite their congressional or senatorial rules for when they can be expelled or removed from office, or relying on 2, 4, 6 years for them to cast a new vote. Until the people have the ability to pull these people out based on failure, we're not going to see that. We're not going to see that change, because I don't think the American people have got a long enough attention span, especially in a 24-hour news cycle, where we are so distracted by everything under the sun. Look, here's keys. Here's keys. Fruit roll-ups. Let's talk about fruit roll-ups. You see how quickly you can change something to something that it's going to be so hard for us to recapture everything without people understanding what it's like to live in a society where this system is not the one running things. And the only way we're going to be able to do that, and I hate to say it, is we need that government shutdown. Well, we need it to shut down. People have got to experience the pain before they start to realize how much they're actually being hurt, but they just don't feel it. We're in an abusive relationship with our government. This is an abusive relationship that we don't have somebody on the outside to say, why are you allowing this person to beat you so often? Well, it could be worse. I'm not getting broken bones. I'm only getting black and blues. And then the black and blues turn into broken bones. Well, it's only a broken finger. It could have been a broken leg. Well, the broken leg is okay because I could have been killed. It's not. We just keep allowing ourselves to get beaten over and over and over again. And I don't know what the remedy is going to be shy of extremes. I don't know what it's going to be.
Well, I think we have to. We are at an extreme point when we see that Hunter Biden is now taking the plea deals, and all 400 charges that were pending on him have evaporated. All the investigations on Joe Biden have effectively, by him taking this plea deal, they're free and clear, because the answer that we're hearing now from politicians and the news media is answered and done. Hunter Biden said he's guilty. He took a plea. That assumed his guilt, and therefore it's done. We don't need to talk about this anymore. And people are letting it happen. They have forgotten about the laptop. They have forgotten about the underage photos of illegal sex workers, as they like to call it these days, prostitutes, no less. They ignore that. They forget about the drug abuse. They forget about the emails that prove and have been verified to be real, that have come from Ukraine, that have come from China, detailing their multi-million-dollar deals over multiple years that have been happening. We have this evidence in front of us. We know that there have been bribes. We know that the plea deals are just washing away. This is barely a slap on the back of the hand on what was done, that none of us would be treated this way. None of us. You lie on a federal document and see how fast they're going to throw you in jail for perjury, for lying to the United States government. Try and dispose of a firearm in the same manner that Hunter Biden did. See how fast they're going to have you up on charges for endangering minors. You have a deal with an international, questionable other nation, a foreign nation that's somewhat questionable, and watch how fast the banks are going to close down your accounts. The IRS is going to freeze your assets. This is the answer in front of us. We know the problem is that bad. Republican and Democrat. We've been talking about Republicans, Democrats too. This is how bad it is. We have to do something before we are left with no other choice but the extreme. Because I agree with you, Frank. If we're not reacting on this, then how much pain does it take? And what's going to be the reaction when that pain finally explodes on out? It's crazy.
Well, we already heard from Merrick Garland today saying tantamount that any attack on him is an attack on democracy itself.
Yeah, he's using the what's his name? Fauci. He's using the Fauci elevation. I am science. If you attack me, you're attacking science. No,
yeah, the credibility of the FBI and the justice system is beyond reproach, and those people that are criticizing it are undermining what it means to have a democratic government. So we're not even allowed to question or criticize the methodology they used in extracting 3 charges that they're going to excuse and expunge.
Yeah.
They're going to expunge these charges against him after 2 years of some restorative
Good
justice
behavior.
bullshit.
Yeah.
They're going to expunge the record after 2 years. I said that the last time I went and bought a handgun, and if it wasn't even a handgun, it was a rifle. I went and bought I was at a local gun store, and a guy came in with a relic. It was a Mini 30, a Ruger Mini 30, and it was in beautiful condition, mint, fantastic. And the guy was looking to trade it in on something else, and they were going to give him pennies on the dollar for what this gun was. And I know what the gun is worth. And I need this gun to fill a collection that I have. So I made a deal with the guy right in there, and I told the gun store owner, I says, listen, you're going to give him this, I'm going to give him that. You just process the paperwork for me so I can get the sale done here. You'll get your VIG. Everybody walks out happy. I'm willing to give the guy more money than you are, but you're going to process the sale. They processed the sale. In the process of me doing this, I was still waiting for my North Carolina concealed carry permit.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to fill out the 4473 to purchase this rifle, to do the legal transfer. I could have said to the guy, hey, listen, here's $800. Meet me out in the parking lot, and I'll throw the gun in my car. But I do things in accordance with the law. I want to make sure that, the guy came into the FFL to sell the gun. I don't want to cheat them out of the money that they were going to make. Mm-hmm. I don't want to leave a question, so I do things the right way. I filled out my 4473. I live in Mecklenburg County. Mecklenburg. There's two ways that you can spell Berg if you live in a county that has Berg at the end of it. B-E-R-G or B-U-R-G. I, for some reason, because of my ineptness and dyslexia, I keep spelling it B-E-R-G. I wrote, now I don't know how the guy even noticed it in my horrible my penmanship, but the guy says it's B-U-R-G. And I had to look at my driver's license to see it said Mecklenburg. And the guy, I said, well, just he said, nope, you can't
Cross
change
it out
that.
or initial, yeah.
We have to void that, and we have to file it, and then we have to fill out a new one. So I now have to complete a form that they're not going to use, so they can then void the whole form because I put an E instead of a U on the form. And with my penmanship, it was very difficult to tell the difference anyway.
Yeah, but it's about...
He said, if I file this and I have that spelt wrong, I would get penalized on my FFL, and you could face criminal charges.
Yep.
For spelling something wrong.
Yes.
By the reverse. Not like I'm trying to hide that I live in Mecklenburg County. I just spelt it wrong.
Yeah.
All right. How I would have been faced with a minimum of 3 years, and been charged with a felony for falsifying a federal document or trying to conceal information on a federal background check. Now, Hunter Biden is able to lie self-admittedly on a 4473 by stating that he was not consuming any illicit or illegal drugs at the time that he was going to purchase his firearm, which to my understanding was a Colt revolver, was listed on the 4473, a Colt revolver. But do you know that it was not the Colt revolver that was illegally disposed of? It was a Taurus handgun.
Yeah.
A semi-automatic handgun. But did you also notice that the firearm pictured in the laptop photos is not a Colt revolver, nor is it a Taurus firearm. It is a Stoeger Cougar. It is for those that don't know, Stoeger is a subsidiary of the Beretta Corporation. Their Beretta, called the PX4 Storm, has a sister gun called the Stoeger Cougar. It's a 9mm twisting barrel operated semi-automatic handgun. That's the gun that when they did all the little spiel up there on Capitol Hill, that's the gun they showed the picture of from the laptop. But he's not charged with any crimes related to that gun. He's not charged with any crimes related to the Taurus that was disposed in a garbage can 2 blocks away from a school. He was only given the opportunity to plead guilty to lying on that report over a Colt handgun. Where is the Colt handgun? Where is the Beretta Cougar? Well, the Stoeger Cougar. Where is that Beretta knockoff? Where are they? Because we know that the Taurus was put into evidence at the local police department where it was retrieved from the garbage. But where are the guns that we know he owns, that he is now in federal violation of owning them? Where are they? And why isn't he being charged with the possession of those illegally registered firearms? Where are those guns? Where are those? I have a friend of mine, one of my sister's dearest friends. Her father died last year in New York City. He had a couple of black powder handguns registered to a premise permit. Black powder. For those of you who don't know, black powder guns, you could be a felon and own a black powder gun. It's not until you own the black powder and the projectile and the the firing caps, do you become required to register the gun. You could own a black powder handgun, a black powder rifle you can go in and buy them as a kit from a hobby store and you can own them. It's not until you put the components together that you turn it into a firearm. Now, they showed up at her house because he had a couple of black powder handguns. He also had a shitload of black powder rifles that you don't have to register. The NYPD came in and seized everything without a warrant. Without a warrant. She didn't know any better. They came in saying, well, we're here to collect these firearms, but we have to search the premises to find if there's any more guns. And they confiscated legally owned guns that she could have owned herself. Her father could have said, when I die, these guns are yours, and she didn't have to tell anybody about them. They took those guns, antique replica firearms, okay, that are not covered under anything as far as the ATF. ATF doesn't regulate black powder firearms, but the police department came in and took those guns. Where are Hunter Biden's other guns? And why is he allowed to skate on this charge when his own father authored the crime bill in 1994 that has incarcerated tens of thousands of minority citizens in this country for owning the same firearms, where they have been sentenced to 10 years or more for committing the same exact crime? They have been sentenced to 10 years. I tweeted and I wrote to the NAACP, where is your outrage? I wrote to the ACLU, where is your outrage? You're supposed to be the one out there standing for the liberties of minority and oppressed people. Why aren't you out there screaming that this piece of garbage is allowed to do whatever the hell he wants to do, and do so with impunity? Because his last name is Biden.
Yeah.
I don't get a single response. Now, it puts us in the Second Amendment community at a little bit of a quandary, because a lot of us in the Second Amendment community are also advocates for people being able to smoke marijuana and be able to own a firearm, because there are certain disqualifiers that they say, well, if you smoke in pot, you can't own a firearm. Well, number one, it's none of your business. In our view, as libertarians, it's none of your business what I'm doing. If I'm not hurting somebody else, it's none of your goddamn business what I'm doing. If I want to have a joint and I want to own a gun, that's my prerogative. That question shouldn't even be on the 4473. Not only that, this 4473 shouldn't even exist in the first place. That shouldn't even exist, because that's already a violation of the Second Amendment. We don't have a problem with Hunter Biden admittedly doing drugs and then being able to own a firearm, because up until then, he was not a felon. He was not convicted of a felony, and as far as I'm concerned, if he wants to own a firearm for personal protection, let's say he is a high-profile individual because of who his family is, he's probably going to be at a little bit more risk than the normal person, because like Sinatra's son, when they kidnapped Sinatra's son, they kidnapped Lindbergh's son. Famous people's children tend to be targeted because of who their parents are, and I think that they too, just because they're famous, doesn't mean they don't have the right to defend themselves. In many cases, they have more of a reason to defend themselves. So I don't care that the man owned the firearm if he was doing drugs. It's his right. It's his right. But the fact that they're going to turn around and use the law that his own father wrote, his own father sponsored, his own father pushed through the House, the Senate, and up into Bill Clinton's desk, and used the same friggin' law and then ignore it for his son's sake. While tens of thousands of other Americans have lost every one of their freedoms because of it.
Yeah, but
because
Frank,
of it.
But remember, Frank, that's because, one, you're remembering the past that is older than most of the youth today who are going to be voting in the next election. Two, because they are counting on the fact that within 3 months, they did it now, so that they have 18 months for the public to completely forget about this, so that when it comes up again in a year, they're going to say, that was asked and answered. We already dealt with this. See, you're just dredging up the past. You're just misstating the past because we've already dealt with this. So let it go. You're just evil, and you're trying to manipulate people by telling them the truth, by pointing out the facts and the two-tiered system or multi-tiered system at this point that we are seeing out there, because they don't want anyone to be accountable. This is not about accountability. This is about deniability. This is about the fact that people will forget. That's why they're doing this, and they're doing it now, so that it's got just enough time that everyone will forget about it, and we will move on to the next thing. People are forgetting about Adam Schiff and the censure already. They're forgetting about the plea deal already. They're moving on to the next thing, which happens to be Ukraine, and they're talking about Wagner, which is not important to what's happening in our nation right now.
Well, this is the flip side of never letting a crisis go to waste. You could either take advantage of a crisis to advance your own message, or use the timing of the crisis to hide it from future reflection. And that's what they did with this. They did this at the same time that the Pentagon discovered an accounting error to the tune of $6.2 billion more money that they can now send to the Ukraine without having to worry about getting congressional approval to do so.
Yeah, amazing how they can just make these errors. It's like the $23 billion $10 billion that California suddenly found out that they had spent and didn't realize that they're in more debt than they had ever been before. They doubled their debt because of an error. Oops, we're sorry. Mistake. Didn't know that happened, because we're not supposed to focus on it. We forgot about already inflation. We've already forgotten that conversation. We're already forgetting about the fact that we are in a recession and that this is long lasting. We forgot about the food crisis. 30% less food exists in the world as we speak. We've forgotten about so many of the arguments that are going on right now, because you got to keep moving forward. You can't stop. You can't think. You can't reflect. No, you've got to just keep moving forward. Keep moving to the left. Never stop. And the reason they're doing it is because they know that if we ever stop, if we ever consider this, if we're ever not emotional about an issue, that they will lose their power. They will lose on the substance of each of these subjects. And that's why they're terrified about it. And it's amazing. Again, we can go back to Adam Schiff. We can go to what's going on with Hunter. We can talk about the international influence peddling, which is a serious issue. We can even look at the submarine that just went down, which the Navy is stating that they knew that this submarine was in trouble Sunday.
Well, they heard the implosion. They knew it imploded on Sunday.
So why did they tell us about it just now? Because it made the Navy look bad. Because they didn't save anyone. They were trying to avoid that. Because I've heard the report, and I can't confirm it yet, but I've heard a report that there were two agencies, one with a submarine rescue device, and another one that would have been able to at least find. One was basically an underwater drone, which would have located the sub. The other one was to rescue the sub itself. Both of them were turned away. They were private commercial organizations. They were turned away by the U.S. Navy because the Navy said they were handling it. Meanwhile, these people died. And now we're finding out, oh, yeah, they knew about this 5 days ago. They could have saved these people.
No, they couldn't have.
No, there was no way.
Once the sub implodes,
I understand.
especially at that depth, they're done.
I know.
Yeah.
Once the implosion happens, but again, this is the argument that is being made out there. There are people who are saying this now because of the cover up the Navy made. They're making the problem worse than it is. But more
Well, the
importantly,
Navy
I
probably told.
knew 4 days ago, that the Navy had released that they had heard and what was a sound that they thought was an implosion.
which was unconfirmed at the time.
Right. But
Right.
okay, and they didn't have a confirmation on it. Okay, but the Navy did release that they heard a sound that they thought was an implosion in the area where the sub was supposedly supposed to be at.
No, I
Yeah,
understand.
Okay, and that was released long before today's events.
Right. They look, here's the reason they turn those organizations away is because they're saying, listen, you really don't need to spend time, resources, or money trying to come out here. One, by the time you get here, it's going to be too late anyway, because even under the best circumstances, there's only 96 hours of air that these people are going to have to survive on. You're going to expel that just in the time it takes to get your equipment here. I mean, the men aboard the Kursk had a better chance of survival. Those guys were in there for a week banging on the hull of that ship.
Yeah.
Before Russia even bothered letting anybody know that there was a catastrophic failure, and we could have saved those men, or at least gotten there in enough time that we could have helped, or at least made an attempt to. There was no reason to say, oh, you got a rescue sub, you got a grapple, you got this, you got
honestly,
that. Yeah, come on.
The Navy turned them away because they didn't see that it was prudent to risk more lives on this mission. Well, more than likely,
but
they knew
it imploded.
Yeah, but my point isn't about that. It's about the distraction that they are using the submarine to create, to take away from. And the point is, why did they release it in the manner that they did, with having a leak, with the way that this information has come out to the public, and now the reaction from the public? It is a complete distraction from Adam Schiff. It's a distraction from Hunter Biden. It's a distraction from Merrick Garland. It's a distraction from what's happening in our nation.
It's a distraction from the Durham report.
Yeah.
That's
something else. It's completely
huge
forgotten.
bombs.
Well, listen, the Navy can operate the way it wants to operate when it comes to the day-to-day duties. They do exactly what they need to do. These are the people that they rely on to get all of that stuff done. But when it comes to the dissemination of information, all of that's got to go back to the Pentagon. And then somebody is going to make a political decision as to how that information gets disseminated and what way to best get the use out of it as possible. It's Roswell.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
It's Roswell. The guys on the ground at Roswell said they saw what they saw, said they did what they did, presented the evidence that they could to the Roswell Gazette, and then by the time the information got back to the Pentagon, they reattached everything, and then there it is. Jesse Marcel standing there with now given a piece of aluminum foil to hold up for a camera. They have to control the message later on.
Yeah, but that's my point. Is they're using this circus that this is the circus they created of themselves. This could have been much more easily disseminated, or at least earlier in the week. If they had talked about this on Monday, we'd be done with that. That would have been out of the news cycle, and we'd be focused at this moment on Hunter Biden. We'd be focused on Adam Schiff. We'd be talking about Mark Molinaro on a national level.
Well, yeah, and plus they also didn't want to highlight the plight of the 500 migrants going across the Mediterranean in a ferry that sank with no survivors, because then it's going to illustrate further what's going on in Europe right now with the migrant crisis over there, and how Europe is being flooded, tens of thousands. They just have 100,000 more that are now crossing the border into Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Into Italy that are coming from I forgot where they're coming from. The
North
Sudan.
Africa.
They're coming from the Sudan. 100,000 more.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to talk about that.
15,000 Americans that were in the Sudan. Those are just Sudanese people.
Yeah, they don't want to show that because then that reflects back on our border, which they don't want to cover that. They don't want to cover, like what Pete pointed out before, that New York just spent $50,000 trying to fly more migrants into Texas and Florida because they don't have anywhere to put them in New York City, and the people in New York City are reluctant to say, "Oh, you want to take our private houses and house them here? Yeah, we'll take them." Now that ain't gonna happen, so they're gonna move them out of there. Every single thing that this government does is contrived. Every single thing that they do is meant to just distract us, to keep us stupid, and to keep us just playing along with the narrative that they want to play. And even though I can't stand Trump, this is the only reason why I consider voting for the guy, other than domestic policies, business policies, and everything else. The only thing I want is I just want him to upset the apple cart. I want him to flip it over. So I want him to be, I'm going to hate to use this analogy, I want him to be Jesus at the tax collector table, just flipping everything upside down and ruining everybody's shit. That's what I want him to be. I want to be him running through there, chasing people with a whip. I want him to just turn everything upside down on its head, expose everything for what it is. I want him to bring James O'Keefe in. I want him to bring, Snowden in. I want him to bring all of these people in and just expose everything once and for all as to how damn dirty and disgusting our government has gotten and how we are not free anymore. We have the illusion of freedom, but we don't have freedom. And until it all changes from there, until people wake up and see it and they can't be fooled anymore, it's going to be the same crap over and over again.
Yeah, it's just crazy what we're seeing here. It's so upsetting that we're constantly seeing this smoke and mirrors, this dance. And there are these elements of these stories that quite often aren't even being presented in U.S. media, but you have to go overseas to find out about what's happening here in the U.S. So often, people need to, we keep mentioning it throughout the show. There's so many reasons why you need to get out and vote. We can't wait. And I know Tamani mentioned in the comments that, well, the next generation, they're coming up, they're being counterculture. They're being more conservative. That's a sliver. And it's not something that we can rely on. We can't wait for the next generation, in my opinion. We can't kick the can down the road because that's what we're seeing most of our members of Congress are doing. And they've been doing for decades. We can't rely on anyone else. We have to be self-accountable and we have to be self-reliant and we have to take the action now. People need to get up and vote. Whether you like my position on it or not, doesn't matter. Hell, if you hate everything I have to say, all the more reason, be involved and go for what you believe is the correct answer and not settle for a half-assed response from any of our elected officials.
Well, and that's the thing, okay? And one of the biggest things, and I'm going to touch on something. I know we're running late as usual. Okay, we're closing in on 2 hours, and this is going to probably start up a whole nother hour long or more discussion.
Uh-oh.
But it does need to be brought up. We've talked a little bit about AI on this program before.
A couple
times,
yeah.
Does anybody know who Jeff Jackson is?
Not a
Say the name again.
Jeff Jackson.
Can't say as I do.
Actually, he's from your neck of the woods, Frank. Jeff Jackson is a representative from the state of North Carolina.
Oh, okay. All right. You talk about AI, you talk about some guy. I'm thinking I'm trying to run through my database in my brain of like computer people.
Is he the representative North Carolina 14?
13, I think it is.
Okay, I'm seeing it as the 14th district. Okay,
maybe
so
it is 14.
A member of Congress. Okay.
Yep. He's a Democrat.
Yeah.
Okay, and of course, Democrats always think that government's supposed to solve everything. He came out with an Instagram reel this week. I'm going to go ahead and play it here real quick. Now, I want you guys to think about this.
Oh, this moron.
No sound.
Artificial intelligence. This is an enormous tidal wave, and it's going to make landfall years before we thought it would. No one knows if this is going to create more jobs than it obsoletes, but I'm on the Science and Tech Committee, and what I've seen is that the entire tech sector is sprinting this direction because they believe that the winners get to stay in business and the losers don't. You're about to see AI everywhere, including politics. There will be lots of high quality deepfakes in this election. There are safeguards being developed for that kind of misinformation. I've talked to different groups who are working on them, but they're in early stages, and I don't think they're going to be ready in time for this election. So you have to be really careful with video clips on social media like this. Be more careful when you hear from me about whether it's actually me. On the other hand, our committee's hearing from people saying that regulation of AI could go too far and block all of this innovation. But that's not going to happen, and I'll tell you why. The political will in Congress to do some big regulation of AI just isn't remotely there. The much greater chances that we'll end up doing basically nothing, as we did with the internet and social media and cryptocurrency. So if getting Congress to do anything is going to be really hard, what's the most important thing about AI that we absolutely have to get right? To me, the top of the list is guarding against the intentional misuse of AI, like creating new biological or cryptological weapons. There's some really bad scenarios that could be unlocked, and we need safeguards in place against them right now. It's really important that political leaders level with you about how much your life is about to change because of artificial intelligence. This is an enormous tidal wave, and it's going to make landfall years before we thought it would. No one knows if this is going to create more jobs than it obsoletes, but I'm on the Science and Tech Committee, and what I've seen is that the entire tech sector is sprinting this direction.
Okay. So, essentially, what he's calling for, and I got into a discussion with the gentleman this week, and actually, he's somebody that I think you know, Frank. You may know him too, Mike. Rich Dion.
Which one? Who?
Rich Dion.
Okay.
Okay, Rich is generally pretty conservative and pretty much thinks that government should stay out of things. He's actually advocating that for government involvement in regulating AI. And I want part of the discussion that I had with him is we need to quit looking at AI as being a technology, even though it is tech. We need to look at it more like it's a language, because that's really what it actually is. It is a computer language. Okay, it is capable of evolving, it's capable of developing, and so forth. But it is essentially a computer language. And things are programmed with this language of AI to have AI type of components. Okay, whether it's needs to be viewed as a weapon. Well, you could say speech is a weapon, Peter. AI, if languages can be harmful, okay, or they can be helpful, AI is going to be much in the same boat. And honestly, first off, nowhere in the Constitution is there a way to technically regulate AI. You can regulate the products that come from AI via the interstate commerce rule. But in the Constitution right now, there is no way of actually regulating actual AI. And he thought that, well, since it's a vehicle of commerce, well, we don't regulate vehicles of commerce. If we regulate vehicles of commerce, we'd have to regulate human thought processes, because that is a vehicle of commerce. We would have to regulate language, because that's a vehicle of commerce. And the list goes on and on and on and on of things that we would have to regulate because they were vehicles of commerce. If we gave that authority to Congress, then Congress would have the freedom to literally regulate everything, because everything could be considered a vehicle of commerce. So that being said, I need to get back to my original point. AI is a language. You can actually think of it as a weapon or whatnot, or technology or a product. I don't believe it's product. I believe that there will be products made with AI, but AI in and of itself is not a product. And AI is going to evolve, it's going to change, and there's going to be multiple versions of AI, just like there are various computer languages. You started off with machine language, which was just ones and zeros in a certain pattern, a certain scenario. Um, Basically telling switches to turn on and off. Okay. A switch was off if zero, is on if it was a one. That's what was computers. Okay. That's what computers started off as. And they've evolved and they've came out with new languages like Pascal, Fortran, C, C+, etc. Okay. AI is just another extension of a computer language. That's all it is. And you're going to see various versions of it, just like you'd see various versions of the programming language C. You see C+, you see C sharp, you see C++, and you also see derivatives of C in the forms of PHP, Java, JavaScript, are all derivatives of the C language. AI is, again, nothing more than an advanced computer language. Okay, and it is an evolution of computer language. We do not regulate language at all in the United States. Okay, they try to. Okay, they try to do so in various means, like supposedly you're not able to say yell fire in a crowded theater. Okay, the truth is you can yell fire in a crowded theater all you want. What they get you on is if you create a panic with your whatever you're yelling and cause a panic that injures people. That's what you actually get charged with. And that is not a violation. You should be held accountable for that. Okay. The same goes with AI. If you develop something with AI that is actually harmful to people, then yes, you need to be held accountable for that. Okay. My personal opinion is that we need to allow AI to be self regulated, i.e., meaning that the people that are developing these technologies and the people that are working with these technologies and so forth regulate it. Okay. One of the best self regulating groups and communities there is the hacking community.
Mm.
They regulate themselves. Okay. Because honestly, you can name all kinds of script kiddies that have been caught without the aid of a hacker, but a true hacker, can you name a one true hacker that has ever been caught without the help of other hackers to catch them? You can't.
Well, no, that's intrinsic, but I understand the argument for self-regulation, which isn't bad, especially since we don't know what's being developed. Because in stepping in now, when the landscape is still wide open, that's censorship, because that is directing everyone into one lane for development. So they're effectively censoring people's freedom on a technology we don't even know what the scope of it could be. But it's somewhat not related, but I want to pause on something about this that I think that's important. The video you just showed is from TikTok.
Instagram.
Well, no, it came out on TikTok and then it was republished on other platforms. I think that's kind of important because the Senate put a ban on members of Congress and the White House put a ban on members of the federal government from using TikTok. Now, Mr. Representative Jeff Jackson is a member of the federal government using a phone, which I would really love to know, was that his personal device or was it federal? Because he may have just violated a federal law that no one, obviously, and I just looked it up, no one seems to have mentioned. He may have been in violation of both the White House and Congress making these laws, using a device that we're told by members of Congress, even the Democrats, is aiding an authoritarian government. and releasing information that is going to be scammed and used. He's worried about AI abusing some potential future right and liberty. Meanwhile, he's using a device and a system that is currently abusing people's rights and freedoms right now. I think that's a bit ironic and should be mentioned. It's ironic to me. He wants to protect potentially future freedoms by destroying current freedoms in the manner in which he has put out this message. I think that's very important. It strikes
It
me
is.
as
Okay. Now, as accountability tied to the actions or reactions resulting from the use or misuse of language is what you're saying, Marshall. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
When they say that you can't go into a crowded theater, actually, there is no law on the books anywhere that prevents anyone from going into a crowded theater and yelling fire. There are laws about creating disruptions, but there's not a law that prevents anyone from going into a crowded theater and yelling fire,
And you know why?
because that would violate freedom of speech.
Well, you know what else? Because sometimes there's a fire in a theater.
Right.
And you have to be able to say, hey, there's a fire over here. Everybody should get out.
If I remember correctly, didn't the Supreme Court say, in terms of yelling fire about free speech, that as long as it is a statement that is believed to be factually correct, speech is fine. But if it's something meant to harm others, it is meant to deceive, it is knowingly factually incorrect, then the First Amendment protections don't apply. So if you scream in a crowded theater and say fire when there is no fire, you don't get to go to court and say free speech, I'm protected, because you endangered others. You knowingly endangered others.
Let's
That's
look
the
at
difference
that that statement, okay, and what the Supreme Court actually said there. It didn't say that you didn't have the right to it.
No, you have the right to say it, but you may be prosecuted.
What they're saying,
yeah,
is you cannot use a First Amendment defense in order to protect yourself from other criminal charges that are related to what you were saying.
Right. And that's the part I think most people miss in that. It's about protection. It's the consequences. It's about consequences.
Right.
You still keep the consequences of your actions. And yet now putting that into context with what we're talking about with AI, they're saying that with an unknown consequence, the government must step in. That is censorship. It is a denial of First Amendment. It's a denial of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, the happiness clause. It is unconstitutional. It is the worst kind of authoritarian government because your untapped potential has now been capped and removed by some arbitrary voice that who knows what the hell where this is coming from. He's saying that, oh yeah, we have to protect you. How? You don't even know what you're protecting us from.
Right. Okay.
So that means you have to be censoring us.
One of the other things on this. Okay. Regardless of whether or not you think government has the authority or it doesn't on this, government is the most ill-suited to protect us against AI because they err both ways. Okay. The first way that they err is they often overreact and come out with some type of huge deal that literally stops helpful products from being developed out of AI or causes that this technology or this language to only be available to specific individuals or specific groups and not available to everybody else. Okay, which in turn is what we saw happen with the telephone companies, okay, telephone monopolies. And you see it in other areas as well. The other issue that we have is the opposite side of the coin, in that government is often too slow or not responsive enough against a specific threat. And either way, it's no good for anything. Okay. If we allow self-regulation, and we see self-regulation all the way across the board, the internet is largely self-regulated because there are experts that deal with this stuff every day, that know the insides and outs of the entire internet. They know how to regulate this in a manner that allows it to still be functional, still be used, and then also address the threats that come about from it. Okay, and they don't address the threats by proposing throwing people in jail or whatever. They come up with ways to address whatever those threats may be, whether it be spam, whether it be malicious videos, malware, whatever. Okay, they come up with ways to combat those harmful effects. The same thing's going to happen with AI, especially if we allow it to be self-regulated. We will see that as AI develops and grows and matures, we're going to see the harmful effects of AI also have tools that will work against preventing those harmful tools from actually being able to take root. I mean, right now we're seeing it already, and that's happened over and over with email. Okay, at the beginning of email, everybody got tons and tons of spam. Hell, how many people got letters from the Saudi prince that was going to give them billions of dollars? All they had to do was blank, blank, blank. Okay, everybody got those emails, and a certain number of people responded to those emails and were caught unaware. But we didn't make those emails illegal. What happened is the industry stood up and started developing what they call spam filters today. Okay, now you don't see near what the spam that we used to see.
Yeah, but that's because what we're seeing with Jeff Jackson and with this argument is the same thing that we've heard from Senator Blumenthal and others. This is a way to try and bring back. They tried this before with it was called SOPA, SOPA, and PIPA, PIPA, Online Privacy Act, where they were trying to stop online privacy, which wasn't about privacy. It was about censorship. It was about the control of the government over what appears on the internet. This is the same thing. This is another end around to try and take on our privacy and our communication. It is another means to limit what can be said and heard, especially because we have to keep saying this, because they don't even know what they're trying to protect us from. So you can't make a law about something that you don't know even exists. You can't. It's not possible. The only thing you can do is say you can only move between X and Y. Here is a lane. You have to stay on this lane. That's the only way they could theoretically protect anything, is because that's the only thing they know. They have no idea. Exactly what I was thinking, as you mentioned, Mike. Spam blockers. An entire industry was created to take care and address people who are abusing email with spam. There are industries, the various shield companies that are out there to protect your privacy online, to be able to use a VPN. There are industries that have been created to protect people. They didn't need a government to step in. and they won't need it with AI. Right now, there's Chat GPT. Well, there's also Gipper, GIPPR, which is the alternative to Chat GTP because it's Chat GTP, GPT is left leaning in its algorithm in the way it's been programmed, and Gipper is right leaning in its programming, and they openly say so. And you can, and I have done this, I've done a video actually putting them side by side on the same exact questions, and you can see the differences in how they're returning it. The alternatives already are being worked on and existing by the marketplace. The only reason why Jeff Jackson, a representative of North Carolina's 14th district, the only reason he is coming out is because people don't know the technology. They have low information, and he is putting in a fear of God in them, a fear that can only be answered by government. And whenever we hear politicians say the only answer is having government involved, is always the wrong answer every single time.
And like I said, government is the least suited to address AI. Point blankly, okay? Because honestly, the people that are the real rock stars that would be able to develop systems and programs and such to actually address the threats that may come forth from AI won't be government workers. Guaranteed, because government workers get second-rate people.
No, the same thing is when they try and every time they try and regulate the stock market. And I know as a stockbroker, I've seen this many times. Everybody in the stock market laughs. Why? Because they have no idea what they're talking about. They have no understanding of how the stock market works, how transactions are traded, the logic or the intent. They have no clue what they're talking about. All they do is make complications, create more paperwork, and get the government more involved in people's private investments. And they don't actually protect anyone because every time they say, this will prevent any more of these problems. And yet you go back another 5 years later, and then there's the same problem over and over again. The same abuses happen over because they don't know what they're doing. They have no expertise. They have no knowledge. They're just spewing some words out there that equate to less freedom, more government control. It's authoritarian. And now they're doing the same thing with this. You don't know what AI is. You don't know how it's going to be used. We are going to protect you. From what? There's no problem. We have to protect you. From what? There's no threat. Tell me what the threat is. Jeff Jackson, what's the threat? He even said so, and you showed it in the clip. We don't know what the problem is. Then why are you protecting me from it? How can you protect me from it? You don't know what it is. You can't protect me from an unknown.
And here's one other thing. And this is the real 100-pound gorilla that's in the room. AI is able to data mine from pretty much anywhere. Okay. Do you think if AI is able to do what he's claiming that it's going to be able to do you think AI is not going to be monitoring the emails going back and forth between the various congressional members?
Of course.
Do you think AI is not going to be able to look at the C-SPAN videos and transcripts of the debates over AI and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and take all these sources and develop a prediction of how a particular vote is going to go? And if it is a vote that is working to regulate AI, don't you think AI is not going to be able to find a way to circumvent that regulation?
Of course they will.
And AI is going to know about it before Congress even votes on it. Yeah, it's going to know with a huge amount of certainty which way that vote is going to go, and it's going to be able to take steps to address that before Congress even has the vote.
It's because, again, it's just like with the stock market and how they keep telling us, well, we're going to protect you from whatever in the stock market, any of the abuses. They never do, because they're not smart enough and they can't predict the future. All they can do is complicate the situation. And again, I go to, but at least when it comes to the stock market and some of the illegal trades or some of the illegal practices, at least there's actually a kernel of something there. They don't understand it. They don't know how to protect people from it. The rest of the market laughs because all they did is make more paperwork for people. But what we're talking, again, I have to keep emphasizing for people watching this, you can't protect someone from an unknown. It's not possible. All you can do is take away someone's freedom. All you can do is punish people from daring to actually to live. This is so authoritarian. It's insane. And I'm glad that you brought it up because I missed that. I would have never seen that. Jeff Jackson is he's not even an anarchist. He's an authoritarian.
Mm-hmm.
He is literally looking at saying that people are too dumb to understand what he is doing to them or trying to do. The people in the North Carolina 14 should be livid right now.
And quite honestly, okay, government 99 times out of 100, actually probably even more so, is the worst solution for problems. Okay, because of all the reasons we've just went over. And we this isn't the first time we've had these discussions about how ill-suited government is for whatever problem it is, whether it's welfare, whether it's tuition, I mean, you name it. Government is the least capable of providing actual solutions. And honestly, the whole purpose of government is not to provide solutions, it's to create problems so that they have a reason to exist. And that's exactly what they do. And that's what Jeff Jackson's trying to do here. And he's trying to say, well, I'm going to put these fears in your head so that hopefully you will actually start contacting your representatives and your people in Congress and start demanding that we take action. That's how they do it, folks. That's exactly how they do it. And the thing is, we don't need them. We've got so many things that self-regulate themselves. We don't need more government regulation on top of us, stealing away even more of our freedoms. Okay, right now, the United States, who's supposed to be the freest country in the world, has the highest incarceration rate of any other country in the world. Figure that one out. Okay, we are losing our freedom. If you want to change that, it's up to us. Okay, government's not going to do it. In fact, government is the very vehicle that's taken away our freedoms. And our founding fathers warned us of this. Warned of this. That's the reason why they came up with the Constitution, was to prevent this. But yet we have components in our country today that are trying to get rid of the Constitution. The Constitution gets in the way. Well, that's its purpose.
Well,
okay.
I already have a response about
But right now, the way things are going, okay, The Constitution has become nothing more than a parchment promise.
Well, I hope people will recognize that the very first thing you should do upon learning this information, as I have just done, is reach out to Representative Jeff Jackson, which I reached out to him on Twitter, where he happens to be, and I asked him about the concerns. Now, I hope that his team and he will respond to this, because he may have violated a ban instituted by his own party, by Joe Biden, on the ban for TikTok. But I'm also asking him directly to explain himself, like I did with Mark Molinaro, to say, wait a minute, explain yourself. Explain how you can protect people from an unknown. How are you not being authoritarian? How are you not limiting people's potential and censoring Americans? Make the comment. It's not enough to say, oh, well, I heard about that. Do something. I just did. You can too. We don't need to wait for someone else in Congress to say, hey, I think we should say something about it. Step right up, be heard, and do something. Do it yourself. Make your voice heard. That's how we get things to change.
Exactly. Okay. And Dahl brings up some great points. Government moves too slowly and inefficiently to react and solve problems.
Absolutely.
It is best done by individuals acting in concert as a community. And that we see that. We see that in our lives all around us. Okay. I mean, honestly, you take any type of natural disaster you want. Who are the first people there? People of the community. They're the ones digging through the rubble trying to find people. They're the ones lending aid. Okay? It's the community that are first there. Who's last to show up on the scene? Government.
Think about Ohio. Remember the Ohio train derailment? Gee, how well did government handle that? And how well did private citizens handle that? There's the example. There's one really big example. Government completely screwed the pooch on that one.
We can look at, countless things. Okay? Government is always the worst suited entity for solving issues, regardless of what that issue is. Okay? They're wasteful. They're slow, inefficient. Okay? And they were designed purposely that way. Okay? Our government was. We need to start relying upon ourselves. And if you want to change the course of this country, it is literally time for you to stop saying, I don't do politics, and start saying, hey, what can I do to better my community? What can I do to start working on changing this and start bringing our politicians back under control? Okay? You can do that in your communities. You can do that with or without us. It honestly doesn't matter. With that being said, we are in the middle of our membership drive for 2023. Okay? You can see the link there on the board. We do encourage you to become a member of the Liberty First Foundation. Let us be your voice if you don't want to be a voice. Okay? But honestly, do something. Allow us to be your voice. If you don't like us, find another organization that you do like. You do like their message of. There's tons of them. There's the Cato Institute. There's the 10th Amendment Center. There's, a number of them. Okay? But get involved. And if you don't want to take the time and the energy to get involved, then find a way to support people that are taking action, people that are doing the work, people that are out there trying to educate people on what they can do to educate people on what their rights are, as to what the Constitution actually says, and how to put the government back into the hands of the people instead of government being the overlords of the people. Okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We're at a little over 2.5 hours. Guys, I want to thank everybody in chat. You brought up some great points. You brought up some great stuff. Okay. But it can't stop here. Okay. We need to do more than just this. I'm asking all of our viewers, whether you're watching us live or you're watching us afterwards, take and share this. Post a comment. Like it. Subscribe. The more you interact with these videos that we put out every week, the more it gets seen by the algorithms. And you can break the algorithms. Okay? We believe that people are being shadow banned, and to some extent, yeah, maybe they are. But you know what? The algorithms can't stop individuals from sharing content. The algorithms can't stop you from putting the message forth. Okay? If you're sitting there and having a discussion, pull up a video. Say, hey, we were just talking about this the other night on the live stream. Okay? It's just little simple stuff like that. Okay? There's ways to have the conversations. There's ways to start the conversations. That's what we need to start doing. That's what we need to do as a people, is we need to start having the conversations. We need to quit seeing red or blue, and we need to start seeing red, white, and blue. Okay? We're all in this together, like it or not. And this is our country. So it's time for us to start serving it. Serving our fellow Americans. And the best way to do that is start getting involved. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Doll, and everybody else that posted in the chat. I do appreciate it. And I thank everybody for being here every week. We are here every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We do encourage you to be involved in the chat. We do encourage you to, like I said, like, share, and subscribe.
Absolutely.
I've been very quiet the last half hour.
I know.
I was stuffing apple turnovers in my face.
We noticed.
I had my dinner at 4:00 this afternoon, and I wasn't going to make it through the show without a boost. So, no way it was going to happen. But
okay, we got any final thoughts, guys?
Well, final thought. On a personal note, if I could ask you guys to continue to give a couple of prayers out to some members of our L1F family. Jeremy and his family are going through some turmoil right now, and it looks very good for them. Everything should be working out quite swimmingly, but a couple of good thoughts sent their way would surely be appreciated. On my side of the spectrum, Vass wasn't the only one up in the New York area this week. In the 5 boroughs, I had to go up and see my mom and my sister, and there's been some less than positive news on that front, and we've had to make some very, very difficult and painful decisions that are going to be quite relevant in the hopefully distant future, but I don't know what's going to happen. Good days and bad. But positive thoughts anyway would be greatly appreciated, because like I told the doctors, I said, you have a lot of patients, but I only have one mom. I said, so treat her as though she's your own. So This is it's been rough. Me personally, I had to undergo a treatment this past week from my spinal injury, and it's supposed to have an 87% effective rate with 13 people, 13 with 12% getting no response and 1% having negative reactions. I once again prove how unique I am because I am in that 1%. So I'm having some difficulties on that myself. It's been a rough week, but I'm here. And if you caught the show last week, you'll notice that I'm not in a little basement kitchen apartment this week, broadcasting. I'm here back in North Carolina, maybe next week, maybe next, I don't know. I might be back in New York, but every one of us, whether we say so or not, and I'm somebody, I have conversations with complete strangers. I can talk to anybody at any time. I don't shrink from a challenge. I don't ever approach, somebody and never want to talk to somebody. I love to talk to people. I love to correspond with people. I can make friends anywhere. I love meeting people. I hate humanity, but I love people. That's part of my problem. I talk to I'm an open book with just about everything I say, I do. I never share my opinion if I'm asked. I always say what it is. I'm a very outward person, and I know a lot of us aren't. So I don't ever have a problem with discussing some of the things that go on in my life because I need the help and support of my friends to keep my strength and my sanity, because if you go about it just myself, just with Lori, just with my immediate family, it's very difficult. And a lot of us don't have the ability to do that. And a lot of us suffer with things in our lives that we're always either too afraid or too proud or too embarrassed to share. And often we don't seek the kind of help that we might not even think we need help with something. But having somebody to talk to and some things, unburdening yourself with certain things does help. And if you have things on your mind and on your head and in your heart and your soul that you don't want to share with people because you're afraid to or you're nervous to, let go of it. Let go of it and talk to people, because you might have thought of 1,000 different ways to alleviate your pain, and the one thing you didn't think of is the one thing that'll help, and somebody else might be able to provide that for you, might be able to provide that insight, that help, that support. A lot of people deal with depression. A lot of people deal with things, and even if you talk to a stranger, you will find that you have a friend that you didn't know. Talk to people and just, let who you are shine, and don't be afraid to share your problems. It's important that you don't keep everything all bottled up. We all need help from time to time, and it's important that we seek it and you never know where you do get, you could have somebody perfectly sane tell you a lie, but the crazy guy who lives in a refrigerator box will always tell you the sky is blue. He'll always tell you the truth one way or the other.
Well,
just reach out and don't be afraid.
Here real quick. I think one of the leading causes of depression is the fact that we are losing our connections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And if you look at how the rate of depression has increased over the years, look at how over that same course, and I know causality, or however worded.
Correlation is not causality.
Yeah, that's one. But if you look at the way things have gone and track the way things have been going, you'll find out that our connection is becoming less as we see depression increase. And it's almost on the same trajectory.
Yeah.
And I think the more we see ourselves being disconnected from humanity, from others, the more we are going to see the problems of depression increase.
Like that. And it doesn't ever cost you anything to ask somebody if they're okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, the worst it's going to cost you is some moments of your time. That's the worst. Even if you're not in the if you're not in a position to actually physically or mentally or emotionally help somebody with what they are dealing with, just giving somebody an outlet in which to share pain or to share joy. You could be surprised how many people in this world have got something that is so important to them that they're so happy about that they don't have anybody to share it with, because nobody shares that passion in their life, or nobody shares the meaningfulness of a moment or an accomplishment, that somebody can wind up feeling depressed over something good because they don't have somebody that they can share that revel in. You take that moment, if it's all for yourself and you can't share it with somebody else, it's like it never happens. Just finding out people are, just reaching out a little bit and talking to them, you make a huge difference in somebody's life. That I'm going to give you a really quick story. Years ago, I used to do security at the Jacob Javits Center in New York City. Mm-hmm. I was always assigned to the political class of people that would come in and do stuff, and I was always doing stuff like that. And every now and then I'd pick up a night shift. And I was a 12-hour shift, 6 at night, 6 in the morning. And I went into work one night. They called me in right around midnight to cover somebody who had gotten sick. And they called me in and said, "Can you come in and cover the last 6 hours?" I says, "Yeah, no problem." I drove into New York City. I got out of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. It was this rainy night. And here's a guy standing out there in the rain, hopping on one leg because he didn't have an extra one. He only had one leg, this guy, in the pouring rain. Guy's got just his clothes on or whatever, and the guy falls down in the middle of the street. And if you come out of the Battery Tunnel, you know this is not a place that you want to be laying in the street at night because it's really dark. I pulled my truck over. I helped the guy up. I got him across the street. I spoke to him for a couple of minutes. Turns out the guy recently lost his apartment. He had nowhere to stay. Somebody stole his prosthetic leg from him, and he had nothing he could do. He had nothing he could do. I put him in my truck. I drove him over to the YMCA shelter, which is not that far away from where I was. Brought him in, got him set up, and I went in there. $25. I got the guy a 4-night stay over there, so at least he'd had some place to go. When I left the Javits Center, I came home. I passed by a thrift store, a 5 and dime place on Nassau Street. I picked up a coat, a set of crutches, and a couple of shirts. Stopped over by the Y on the way over. I says, "Hey, listen, I know this guy don't have nothing. It's cold." I brought the stuff over to him, and when I was talking to the guy at the desk, they needed somebody to work there. They went up. I said, "Well, why don't you give this guy the opportunity? I'm sure he'll trade room for work." Didn't think nothing about it. 6 months later, I'm walking down by 17 Battery Place in New York City, and I see this guy. I didn't even recognize him, but he recognized me because he recognized my truck. Like, if you knew the truck I was driving at the time, you knew that it was not something that was easily dismissed. He had a new prosthetic leg, new set of clothes on. He's now the assistant manager at the Y. He lives there in the manager's apartment over in that place. It was $25 that I paid for a room. I spent like $25-$30 on some clothes and a set of crutches just to give him a hand. The guy's entire life turned around because somebody reached out to him when he fell. If you see somebody fall, no matter what you can do to try, and even if you can't afford to do anything monetarily. Just picking somebody up and helping them stand back up on their feet and letting them know that they're not alone, that somebody is there willing to reach out and help. You make all the difference in somebody's life. So help people. Doesn't matter their race, their color, their creed, their sexuality, the orientation, whatever it is. Somebody needs help. If you can help somebody, help them. If for no other reason, it'll pay dividends to your own karma, because you can look in the mirror knowing that you did something that other people passed on. And in the process, you help them and you help yourself. And that's what we at the Liberty First Foundation try to do, because everything that we do, we have a vested interest in wanting to make life better so we can improve our own state of freedom. We don't do it for our own glory. We're trying to do it because everybody's freedom is at stake. Everybody's betterment is at stake. And when we try to reach out and we try to do these things within our means, we can only do so much. And if you can't help other people and we can pick up a ball and run with it, if you can help support us, we can run that much further with the ball, and we can help people that you might not be able to. And in turn, we help you too. So I just get very retrospective when I'm dealing with a lot of stuff. I'm usually not a very deep person. You know, while we've been doing the show, I cleaned 4 guns while I'm sitting here. But with that, I'm going to say good night. God bless you guys. I love you guys here. Love all you guys watching. You guys be safe, shoot straight, and tomorrow's another day. The fight continues. And join us back here next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And yes, I have a Batman figurine hanging on the wall over there too, so I'm allowed to say that. I bought the licensing rights. So you guys be good. Have a good night. We'll catch you guys all next week.